This time on No Not the Mind Probe, episode number 85. The gang's all here.
Welcome to No Not the Mind Probe. It's a celebratory one. Hey, I was just going for the it's the Mind Probe with a special guest, David Tennant. Oh! Yes, it's not the Muppet Show, folks, though. Although wouldn't that be nice? But instead, it's a podcast where we watch.
Those were our two options: Muppet Show, recreate the Muppet Show for the third time, or do this podcast.
Yeah, but then felt and glue in those little bobbly eyes on socks. It was just too much. It was too much for us.
Couldn't handle it.
We couldn't do it. It doesn't fit our comedic style. But you know what does fit our comedic style? A podcast. Like this one, where we watch and rank every single Doctor Who story ever. My name is John Grant, and I am a lifelong Doctor Who fan. I have been watching it for 38 years, and what we're about to get into is possibly one of the highlight years of those 38 years. I'm just going to say that right now. One of the big ones. If I rank my 38 years in a row, it's usually year 12. Then year 1, then back to anyway. I'll get back.
We have a separate. We'll break out into discussion groups over the ranking of not John's life years, but his Doctor Who years.
There was no life before Doctor Who.
My name is Porter Mason, and I don't minimize Jim Henson's work as just gluing googly eyes to felt. I celebrate the man and his entire canon. And John, my friend here, has been asking me to watch Doctor Who for 26 years. A couple of years ago, I finally said yes, and I've gotten through so many Doctors. And then this episode is really going to test how many Doctors I can get through. Because, John, we look at two stories every episode of this podcast. We look at the NuWho, the 2005 and going forward Who, and then the classic Who. Mm-hmm. And you pair two episodes together. John, what do we have in store for this extravaganza? I'm waving, for those of you not watching on YouTube, I'm waving my sonic screwdriver TV remote control, not available in stores right now.
Not available in stores. We've got like 13 Doctors. I don't know, several recast Doctors who we didn't know about before, Doctors who we didn't realize were still around to play. I mean, things. This is a Doctor crazy 50th anniversary celebration and the 20th anniversary celebration. We're gonna do a little bonus segment for everybody tuning in, because we've got to talk about the Night of the Doctor, which is the special webisode that blew up the internet.
Is this the only one of these in our whole podcast? Is this the only one of these we're really going to cover?
Pretty much, yeah, because the others are, they're out there, and some of them are entertaining and funny and stuff, but, we've got to keep our eyes laser focused on the prize. We don't have the time for it, but this one is a pretty significant one, because it is the regeneration of the 8th Doctor, which is
It's crazy. A huge part of continuity.
Yeah, you needed it, right? We didn't know what happened to him. He must have regenerated as far as we could tell, but who knows how and when? Well, now we know. And then, of course, that feeds right into the Day of the Doctor, the 50th anniversary extravaganza with David Tennant, Matt Smith, John Hurt, and a cast of many other Doctors and friends. And of course, the only natural pairing of that is with the 5 Doctors, the 20th anniversary special from 1983, with, of course, the original 5 Doctors or thereabouts. There's been some fudging in that, but roughly in there, and just about every companion you can shake a stick at, plus a few monsters. So yeah, let's get celebrating, boys.
All right. Now, I want to point out that John told me right before recording that we really needed to make this one work and make this one count. And I believe I flubbed the third word of the entire podcast. So I apologize for that. But from here on out, it's smooth sailing. I'm going to say all the right words in the right orders, and you're not even going to believe it.
Sound clips won't work or something, probably. But
sound clips may not work.
We want people to know that this is a raw broadcast. That this is not. This isn't sanitized for your protection like a.
That's right.
Seat.
That's right.
This is you're just sitting down on that toilet seat. Yeah, this metaphor got away from me.
as we like to say, as with Doctor Who itself, we like to test our fans
Hmm.
and really see, can they put up with a lot of a
And
bull
the answer is
doohickey.
no. A lot,
The answer
most
is
of them are
no,
just like, no,
largely.
no, we don't have time for this. You need to get to the point or not.
Listen, the Day of the Doctor. We have
But wait,
three.
start with night.
We have three doctors. I'm going to start with the 50th anniversary with three doctors, not the 30th anniversary with five doctors. I'm gonna do this one.
This is the
Okay,
20th anniversary with 5. This is the 50th with
20 with five,
yeah.
50 with
But
three.
wait, you got to start with Night of the Doctor. That happened first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ugh,
Okay. So
I
Night of the
just went
Doctor.
over
Okay.
it.
Oh goodness, you're
Well,
right.
that's your
We got to
second
do that
list.
one first.
I don't have a sound clip from that one,
We don't have a sound clip, and I'm
but
going
you
to try to
watched.
tell you. And it is not an official standalone
No.
Doctor Who story, but it does feature notably John, the Eighth Doctor,
Yeah, right. So
who
this was dropped. This was
November 15th, 14th, 2013.
and this was a very well kept secret. Nobody expected this to come. And then I believe it dropped. I think it was. I'll never forget where I was. It was it was the morning, and I think I'd just gotten to work or something like that. And then the social media channels were blowing up, and the BBC. I think what happened was the BBC was going to release it at a certain point, either that day or later in the week. And then suddenly they realized it was about to leak what was happening. And so basically the BBC's social media channels and whatever just said, don't do anything else. Don't look at anything else on the internet. Just go to this link and watch this right now. And yeah, the internet basically exploded at the appearance of Paul McGann. I'm a doctor, but probably not the one you were expecting. It was pretty exciting.
And so we're right in the middle of the Time War.
Yeah.
And the Eighth Doctor shows up. We have not seen the Eighth Doctor in anything since the movie, right? And few people saw that.
Yeah.
So the Doctor is rescuing a pilot who is her spaceship is crashing. Yeah,
Yep.
Cass. And then once she finds out that he's a Time Lord, she says, I don't want your help. I don't want, even though like she's literally going to die.
Yep.
And he's like, no, I don't want anything having to do with you, because she's like, the Time War has devastated the whole universe essentially. And if you're a Time Lord, I don't even want anywhere
just as
near
bad
you.
as those Daleks. Yep.
So the Doctor stays, they crash.
Mm-hmm.
The Doctor is taken in by the Sisterhood of Karn.
Yeah, and this is a reference to the Brain of Morbius, a fourth Doctor story, which we have not watched yet, I don't believe. But yes, these are the Sisterhood of Karn. This is they had some special relationship with the Time Lords, and so this all actually fits into the continuity quite well.
Fascinating. By the way, this is 7 minutes long. This recap is going to be as long as like I feel like an entire episode, because a lot is packed into here. They revive him. They cannot revive Cass. They tell him, we can give you these things. You'll start a regeneration. We'll even let you choose which characteristics you'll have in your next regeneration. And then they say he has to do something to end the Time War, which, as they put it, threatens all reality.
Yeah, he's been avoiding it. He's been trying to stay away from it. But now they're like, you gotta get in the game there, buddy.
So he takes a look over at Cass, who has died, and he says there, I guess there isn't any need for a doctor, but turn me into a warrior. What we need is a warrior, not a doctor. And then he regenerates, and we get the War Doctor.
We get a young John Hurt in the reflection. Yeah. So this confirmed. So this confirmed who John Hurt was, because if you recall, flashback to Name of the Doctor, we got introducing John Hurt as the Doctor, which everybody
last episode. Yeah,
everybody took as clear indication that he is playing the Doctor. So that was, when you put it on the screen like that, that's definitely a good sign. But nobody knew which Doctor, right? Where was this Doctor coming from? It wasn't clear. The name the War Doctor had not been introduced yet. So
we'd also not often seen a Doctor in the same place as the other Doctors, so that's also...
Yeah. So we were sort of like, could this be a pre-Hartnell Doctor? That'd be crazy. Or is this a post Matt Smith Doctor or something? What's going on? So then this confirmed where John Hurt's Doctor was in the timeline. He was after Paul McGann, and it's a very nice little performances from Paul McGann. You'll be rest assured, Big Finish has done a series with Cass traveling with the Doctor in a Time War thing just came out. And then mentioning Big Finish, one of the things people really appreciated was he when he drinks the potion that regenerates him, whatever, he lists a whole bunch of people's names. Those are all audio companions. Charlie Carey. So
Wow.
they canonized his
Jeez.
audio adventures in this thing. And yeah, so this was a nice little. I mean, it really did blow up the internet, and it has started in it certainly started then, and it still sort of calls for it. Do a limited series with McGann. He can still pull off the Doctor.
Yeah.
And it's like, do a series, give him a couple, a couple seasons, a little mini series or something like that, and between seasons. But yes, people, it's enormously exciting, huge.
But nothing ever came of that other than a bunch of Big Finish stuff.
Yeah, he's mostly an audio Doctor, but
Yeah, it was great.
It was lovely to have him back, and he was very good.
And obviously, we did do the Doctor Who movie. I'll look up the episode in a second, but not the best movie, and made right in the heart of the 80s, as I remember.
90s, mid 90s.
90s, very kind of almost campy.
Yeah.
And what was nice to see here is that he fit in really well. Like he didn't seem out of place or out of time or anything like that.
No, he's got some nice little. He's got that obviously very few lines, but immediately is right into the character. He's got the nice little. She's like, where are we going? He goes, back to the ship. She goes, why? He goes, the front crashes first. They get through. He's got like a nice little. Got these nice little moments. So a nice little McGann. So now we know who John Hurt is.
Now we know who John Hurt is.
And then we can head into
We had just been, remember, it was introducing John Hurt as, I think it just said as the Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, if you want to hear more about our thoughts on Paul McGann, podcast episode number 48 is when we tackled that.
Yeah, we did that. Yeah, we tackled that. So I have been, this podcast, I know nobody thinks I plan, but I do. And I've been making sure that you've seen everything that you needed to see to fully follow the Day of the Doctor. Like I was like, we got to watch the Terror of the Zygons at some point. Like I've been working hard to make sure that you can fully appreciate the awesome splendor of what we're about to discuss.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, good job. You did it. You did it. Okay, let's move on to the Day of the Doctor. So, the Day of the Doctor, the 50th anniversary special. This aired the 23rd of November, 2013. That would have been right around Thanksgiving. Do you remember? Was it right before Thanksgiving?
I believe it was before, yes. Because I was in London, but we'll get to that.
Whoa. Okay, interesting. I don't know some of this. This is story number 240. It was a single episode, but it's 80 minutes long. Mm-hmm. So, it's a supersized show.
Movie, basically.
We have written by Stephen Moffat. We have the 11th Doctor, but we also have the 10th Doctor.
Yep.
We have Clara. We have, thank God, Rose. Kind of. Not really. We have Billy Piper. We have Billy Piper. And,
Touch of Rose,
yeah. And then John Hurt. So we have a 3-Doctor extravaganza. Mm-hmm. And we do have a clip, so I will play that for you right now.
It's not working.
We're both reversing the polarity.
Yes, I know that.
There's two of us. I'm reversing it, you're reversing it back again. We're confusing the polarity.
Want to lose affairs?
You, how can you be here? More to the point, why are you here?
Good afternoon. I'm looking for the Doctor.
You've certainly come to the right place.
Good, right. Well, who are you boys? Oh, of course. Are you his companions?
His companions?
They get younger all the time. Well, if you could point me in the general direction of the Doctor. Really?
Yeah, really.
You're me? Both of you?
Yup.
In that one?
Yes.
You're my future selves?
Yes.
Am I having a midlife crisis?
All right.
Gotta have a little inter-Doctor squabbling.
Inter-Doctor banter. And they have great chemistry, all three of them together. They've never been anywhere together. It's nice to see immediately some good chemistry.
I love Matt Smith continue telling David Tennant how skinny he is, as if Matt Smith is not also insanely skinny.
All right, so here we are. Picture it, the Time War. Mm-hmm. We're right in the middle of the Time War, and we see who we're going to come to know as the War Doctor. Do they ever say that?
No, the problem that they've had to deal with, of course, is that now the numbering is like now the 9th Doctor is not technically the 9th Doctor, right? But you don't want to renumber them because that's just how we know them all.
But they never refer to each other. Obviously, that's more in the fan.
No, he basically says I'm never don't. he doesn't go by the name the Doctor technically.
Right,
So
right.
he's
And they
not a
talk
doctor.
about that too.
Yeah.
They right. The other doctors also don't
Yeah.
seem as that. So, okay, so the War Doctor, he during the Time Lord, he's going to basically use this crazy weapon, the moment,
Mhm.
and you see that this is his decision, and the Ninth Doctor actually referencing him. It would have been great to have him here because he was going through so much of the PTSD following the War Doctor's decision here, and what he
Mhm.
does is he essentially, you can think of it as like he sets off a nuclear weapon. He sets off
Yeah.
like a huge weapon that essentially destroys all the Time Lords and all the Daleks, and it does end the Time War, but he's haunted by it because it just killed tons of innocent people, tons of
Mhm.
Time
Mhm.
Lords. It killed his entire civilization.
See Oppenheimer in theaters now.
The interface for the weapon is Rose Tyler.
Mm-hmm.
So which is
Well, in the guise of
hilarious.
Bad Wolf. So I mean, it's sort of
Yeah,
playing with the
whatever Bad
tiny.
Wolf meant or
Yeah.
does mean. I mean, it means so much to all of us, but
Yeah. Yeah.
but there's Billy Piper. Shout out to Billy Piper. So, okay. So then it opens up a wrinkle in time.
Yeah.
so
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
so that he's able to see the moment we just saw, where he's able to see the 10th and 11th Doctors. He first runs into them, and we've seen them just previously running into each other back in, what was it, like Victorian England, I believe.
Elizabethan.
Elizabethan, well, yeah,
Yeah.
Elizabethan England, because they're there with Queen Elizabeth, and Queen Elizabeth quite fancies the 10th Doctor.
Mhm.
And in fact, we find out that they did technically get married. So
Marries him.
he's
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
was briefly a ruler of
I'm gonna be
England.
king. Yeah.
Okay. They all three meet up. Then a bunch of stuff happens. After they sort some things out, we see that the Zygons have gone into these three-dimensional paintings that Time Lords can create with some sort of technology that they have. And the Zygons have used them to go into these paintings and then come back out of them in present day in of course in England, because that's where all the alien
That's where all.
activity
Yeah. Why
and
would
the
you go
world's.
anywhere else? You're an
They
alien.
come out on the National Gallery, and Zygons are able to, they're like shapeshifters. Is that their main thing, or is that just what they're doing here?
Yeah. Remember, they can, if they capture you, they can duplicate themselves into any. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Remember, they did that in Scotland.
So they take over, right? So they take over, not they take over, but they run into some fine folks from UNIT, and they impersonate them.
Kate Lethbridge Stewart.
And Kate Stewart's here, yeah.
And soon to be, and we'll be seeing her again. Very big fan favorite, Osgood. Did you like Osgood? She's very cute, with her little Tom Baker scarf and the scientist. Yeah.
Yeah. No, she's great. And she reminds me of who was the lady scientist who was the companion, Liz Shaw.
Oh yeah. A lot of Liz Shaw parallels. Yeah.
So great. So they're there. Yeah. By the way, Osgood, what's her name?
Yep, Osgood.
She had a lot of shades of 80s movie girl who was like, she would take off her glasses and whatever. She's like, oh God, she's so beautiful. It's like I just like that they tried to make her mousy looking.
Sort of
And it's like,
geeky,
she's
yeah.
this very beautiful woman.
She is very beautiful. She is, I believe, married to, I don't know how much you follow all. She's married to Richard Osman, who is he's a big tall guy with glasses. He's on like QI, and he's a presenter on some of those British shows. But yes.
I got nothing. I believe you. I believe John. I believe you.
Excellent. My web of lies and deceit.
Okay, so back to Kate Stewart. She wants to blow up a nuclear weapon. She's just like, look, can we just please blow up a nuclear
Let's
weapon?
blow up the Tower of London, for goodness
Blow up
sake.
the Tower of
everybody.
London. But basically, she's trying to contain this. She's like, maybe we should just blow it up. Parallels to the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And they decide to go into the painting. Basically they're talking the whole time with the War Doctor, and like we mentioned before, they're basically saying they just disown him. They're very uncomfortable with him there. Like they're just like, we don't want to forget this part in our lives. We don't even call you the Doctor. He's like, I don't call myself the Doctor. And this whole idea was I knew what I had to do, so I became this other person briefly, but that's done now. I'm done. It's gone. It's over.
It's like, but don't you feel bad about it? And like, how does this affect you? Like one of them's like, yes, I feel terrible. And Matt Smith's kind of like, I've moved on. Like I sort of had to forget it or whatever. And then it was a very good, the scene in the Tower of London is the most important scene of the thing, where they're trapped in the tower and they're talking back and forth. And then they're talking about, using the sonic screwdriver to figure out how to get out. It's like
Yes.
same case, or same program, different casing. And it's like, Stephen Moffat, you little devil. That's going to come back.
Right, yeah, they talk about executing programs and saying like, well, this is impossible, this would take millennia to run, and they're like, well, then if you start it,
Yeah.
it has been millennia since you or me, and so this will all work out.
It
So
also has a very funny moment where they're like, we're so smart. And then Clara just bursts in, and then they're like, how did you do that? She's like,
it's like, it
the
was
door was
open.
unlocked.
So the big thing is all, I mean, I'm skipping over stuff, but it all comes down to, are we going to are we going to relive this important moment again? And it's talked through, like, am I going to destroy this
Gallifrey
whole
and the
civilization,
Daleks. Yeah.
destroy Gallifrey? And he's haunted by the children in particular, that he's just killed thousands and thousands of children.
It's always the kids.
Again, and as a mother, John,
It's
that
allowed.
You
You can kill millions of people to save one child. That is the parenting
That's right.
rule.
If the War Doctor had been doing it to save his
his own
newborn
baby.
son, it's fine.
Yep.
But no, and Clara says, Clara's always there to be like, hey, maybe don't do this. And they're like, no, we can't, but how? It's like, I don't know, think of some other way, and then you can. So then
Clara now has become, we've already decided she's one of the most important companions ever, and we're done with that. And now she's also like, this deeply traumatic thing that undid your whole life and changed the entire shape of the universe. How about we fix that too? It's like, she's really just knocking things off a checklist.
So, I would say you're right. That scene was big. But another big moment is they decide that how they're going to do this is they're going to trap Gallifrey in a pocket universe, which we've set up previously too.
The paintings, yeah.
And, well, not just the paintings, but also we've talked about pocket universes in other
yes, that's true. It is
episodes as well. And then, but in order to do this, they get back all 10 reincarnations.
Everybody.
And they're all there. Now, John, why are they turned away? I can't see some of them. They're turned away. Why are they turned away from the camera? I couldn't see some of them. But yeah, they're all there.
Stock footage of all of them.
Yeah.
And then, of course, so the massive surprise of, and the wonderful line of, all 12 of them, I didn't know when I was lucky. And then you hear, no, sir, all 13. And you get a little shot of Peter Capaldi, who we knew was cast, because we're only a month away from the Matt Smith regeneration.
Oh,
so it was cast, but it was shocking. So, he's immediately recognizable with those eyebrows and that voice, and so everybody was just like,
I didn't know that would have. That makes sense. That I guess that would have been announced, but I didn't know that.
Yeah. So the only Doctor to have ever appeared before his actual regeneration. History in the making.
So then a couple things happen. So that's sorted out. Great.
Yeah.
Now the interesting thing is, the War Doctor is the War Doctor and not the Ninth Doctor.
Yeah.
But then they sort of fixed him as like, well, now actually you are like, they own him by the end. Like, no, you're the Doctor. Like, you know.
But then he's like, but I won't remember this, will I? Because of the whole,
Well, and none of them will. Right. Yeah, no one will.
So yes, and then he starts to regenerate. I think Stephen Moffat was like, wait, I just fixed the one regeneration off screen we didn't see, and then I'm going to leave another one hanging. So he's like, I better just deal with this. So then we get him regenerating into, and you can just see Christopher Eccleston's eyes appearing.
I was really hoping that he was. I knew he wasn't, but because we talked about this, but I was like, it would have been great if he was there for like 30 seconds just to kind of come alive. And then you're like, oh, well, that's enough for this episode. I'm sure that's fine. But then Matt Smith wandering around the gallery, and the caretaker is there. Curator. Sorry, the caretaker's something else. The curator is there, and it is a very old but fun Tom Baker.
I mean,
and we learn a little bit about this character, and I'm interested if we've learned anything more about them since the episode came out. But it does seem like it's not just Tom Baker. It's like, yes, this is a version of the Doctor in the future, and he gets this job, and it's sort of also saying, this is my preferred incarnation. Like, I took this back on. Like, this is
revisit in the future. You might revisit a few, but just the old favorites. Yeah, like a little thing there. Stephen Moffat has said it's a little vague. It's meant to be vague, but that he had, he sort of said, one, I think, quote he had was saying basically like, I've made sure that Doctor Who will go on forever, because the implication is that Tom Baker, he could regenerate one day into Tom Baker again, an older one like this, but obviously that will never happen on screen, so the series can never end. It's an interesting argument. But yes, hinted at that this is a future version of the Doctor on some level. And
yeah. that he kind of that this is his when he like kind of retires and is puttering around his garden. This
Yeah.
this is his version of that. And then I just want to this quote is called out, and it is a very nice quote where Matt Smith says, "I have a new destination. My journey is the same as yours, the same as anyone's. It's taken me so many years, so many lifetimes. At last I know where I'm going, where I've always been going, home, the long
Mhm.
way around." And that's
Mhm.
really wonderful. It's like
Mhm.
that's where we're all going. We're going home. We could have gotten there. We could have saved a lot of trips, but we're
Yeah. Yeah.
just kind of going
Well, trying to get there.
back where we were, but we have to find out what home means to us. So yeah, really, really so much here. I mean, this is a perfect example of like this is 80 minutes, and I feel like in some of the classic ones and some of the new ones too, it's like it would have been strung out to like 5 episodes, 6 episodes, and this is
This would have been a
compact,
10-parter. Yeah. Yeah.
but it gets through a lot. It's paced really well. We kind of skipped through the plot, but the plot advancement of the paintings and how they find these different things, that's all fun. Like there's just it's a really really well done episode, and as has been before with some of the other Stephen Moffat ones, not all of them, but with some of them, you're like, well, this was a high degree of difficulty,
Yeah. Yeah, this is this is
and he
this is
really pulled
not
it
an
off.
easy one. Like,
Yeah,
hey, we're gonna do a movie. It's gonna be simulcast around the world. I think in Guinness record, 90-something countries all at once.
wow,
Something like 70 million people, I think. Massive hype. This was hugely hyped. The 50th anniversary. It was broadcast on television, but also simulcast in theaters. I saw it in a theater in Leicester Square in London. I mentioned that on the cast before. I was there. I was at the 50th anniversary. You can see my T-shirt here if you're
ooh,
watching. This
yeah.
is
For
the
those on YouTube, go to
immediately go
youtube.com
now to YouTube and look.
/mindprobe show or
It's
/ at
it's
mindprobe show,
the
whatever.
T-shirt from the 50th anniversary convention at the Excel. I was there on the day, the 50th, this Saturday. Saw Matt Smith and Jenna Coleman and Stephen Moffat, and then saw all on the same couch at the same time Peter Davison, Colin
What?
Baker, Sylvester McCoy, and Tom Baker. Madness. And then I met Tegan and I met Leela and got their autographs. I met Terrence Dix, the writer, who was just wandering around, and I tackled him
Good.
and talked to him. So yes, massive 50th anniversary of celebrations. But yeah, I think you gotta just we've talked in the past about the brilliance of Stephen Moffat on some of these episodes, and yeah, you got to hand it to him on this one. Talk about pressure, right? Here's the hey, this is going to be massive, and the 50th anniversary fans are notoriously picky about things, and you've got to somehow deliver. After doing a whole season of Doctor Who, you now have to deliver this thing. He said he was a nervous wreck about it. And yeah, I mean, I think you're right. It is very tightly plotted, and everything. Even it's good. It's a good one for rewatching because it's great to see how certain things set up other things, right? Like the sonic screwdriver thing about like, oh, it's the same software, different casing, and it's like, oh, and then later at the end, it's like, okay, yeah, I've been thinking about this equation since I was the first Doctor. Same software, different casing, right? Like
Yeah.
it's the same. And how the parallel of Kate and the nuclear bomb you mentioned, and it's great. It's a very well structured story. John Hurt is fantastic.
He's
And
great.
for someone who's never played the role before and has to establish him, like you just immediately like, yeah, he's the Doctor. Like or he's the version of the Doctor. I totally buy it.
Did we mention this last time? Is he a Doctor Who fan?
No, he I mean he's heard of it obviously. He's
Yeah.
he's English. He was offered the role. His wife apparently was the one who talked him into it. She was like, "What, are you crazy? Like you'd only do it. You only have to do it once, and you're the character everybody loves, and it's the hero
Right.
character. Like why wouldn't you do it?" And Stephen Moffat apparently very very sweetly said that like one of John Hurt's big questions was like, "So I am a doctor, right? Like I'm officially a doctor," and he's like, "Yeah." Of course, Big Finish did do a series of audios with him. He died not too long after of cancer, but Big Finish did a series of him as the War Doctor. They're very good, not surprising. Billy Piper coming back. Yes, you got to bring in Billy Piper. I think just for the, I think sort of the rationale was, well, she's kind of a big piece of why the series is on now,
Yeah.
and so sort of recognizing that. Tom Baker, yeah, that was a really when it was a good moment. So as I said, I saw this in the theater with a bunch of people. Obviously, the moment where all the doctors showed up, huge applause, and everybody thought, okay, this is the big moment. And then you get the quiet moment in the museum, and if you recall, you hear Tom Baker's voice before you see him.
Right.
And certainly all of the old fans in the theater were like, oh, no way. And then they actually got him. So that was pretty amazing. And it was just all the little, there's a great, all the little Easter eggs. The opens with the old credits. Clara's teaching at Coal Hill School, which is where Ian and Barbara were teaching and where we meet Susan the first time. If you see in the Black Archive, there's all the pictures of the old companions, and it's got all the sort of history of Doctor Who, including, again, I think done deliberately. Like clearly, they sort of Photoshop random people. It's like it's Mike Yates and like and like Martha or something together. It's like all these people that you're like, wait, what? They've never met before. So adding all of this that you could do. But yes, huge. And then topped off. So after the show. After the theater, we went, and then you could go and I think it's called Red Button, or there's something that with the BBC Digital that you could see additional content or something.
Yes, it was BBC. You're right. It was called Red Button.
Yeah, and they had a special called The Five-ish Doctors. It's on BritBox if you haven't watched it. Check it out. And it was a little comedy thing that Peter Davison wrote. And it's a little comedy thing that's basically him, Sylvester McCoy, and Colin Baker trying to get into the special. They're like, why aren't classic? And it's like them calling Stephen Moffat and being like, hey, I think you've got a great storyline idea. And like, it's got Sylvester McCoy, who's actually in New Zealand filming The Hobbit, and it's got Peter Jackson and what's Gandalf's name? Ian McKellen. Yeah, Ian McKellen there. And like they have an appearance in it or whatever. And in fact, Sylvester leaves to go try to be on the in the special, and they have Peter Jackson running around being like, "Where's Sylvester McCoy?" And then Ian McKellen is like, "Well, I'll be honest, Peter. I think this scene might just be better without him." So, very good. Paul McGann makes a little appearance. So that was, but yes. A massive celebration for the 50th anniversary. It was very exciting to be there.
No, why were you in London?
Because of that. So I specifically, it was clearly, well, and I statute of limitations has surely passed. I obviously knew this was coming, knew they were going to be having a huge convention in London and stuff like that you could go to. And I was like, surely there's a work reason that I need to be in London. So I had to be there for work.
Oh, yeah.
But Mike came and we went, and my mother actually shares pictures that my mother had made us Tom Baker scarves. So we wore our scarves to the convention. And yes, it was an amazing day. It was I mean, I've been to sci-fi conventions before, and they're a mix of all things, but this was all Doctor Who. And I mean, they had every companion was there. They had autograph sessions with all these people. Tom Baker, Graham Norton was there interviewing people. It was cool. It was very, very
cool. And again,
cool.
like thinking about all that, like what an incredible letdown it would have been had the episode fallen flat, which it easily could have.
Right.
And then again, I feel like he just paced it so well to have one thing happen after another. And then the Tom Baker moment at the end too, just as a cherry on top of like, yeah, you would just leave. You guys are all there in love with this show, and some of you, including yourself, having traveled very far to come to this, and then to be able to keep that, well, right, and then but then what the reality was,
it was like called Delta and the Bannerman 2, and everyone's like, oh. Yeah, I should say.
Yeah,
I should say to you mentioned too. I forgot Christopher Eccleston. They did try to get him, and he didn't want to come back. And so that was sort of where Stephen Moffat came. But yeah, Stephen Moffat has said he's like if he had been willing to come back, it would have been John Hurt. He would have just taken the John Hurt role, and he's like, I think his doctor could have, that still works, right?
It would have
his
made
doctor
sense,
sort of
actually.
tormented. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's like, I think that's fine. And it would have been, very fine. I got to have John Hurt, obviously, so that's great. But yeah, you do think, I think Christopher Eccleston's attitude has changed on Doctor Who over time, but it's sort of like, that would have been a really good role for him to have. He probably would have enjoyed it. But, can't have, as we're going to see in our next story, when you can't get an old doctor back, you got to make up some, you got some strategies to deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't we move along to the Five Doctors? So this is the 20th anniversary special. It was the number 129 of the 300 Doctor Who stories. One episode, also 90-minute special.
Mm-hmm.
Also aired on the 23rd of November, 1983. So they literally were doing the exact day. It aired 30 years previously on the exact day.
Mm-hmm.
It starred Peter Davison, Patrick Troughton, John Pertwee, and not William Hartnell.
No, he was dead. Richard Hurndall.
And then Tom Baker was there, but kind of off on his own adventure.
He was so this is archive footage from an unbroadcast lost story, which
Oh,
we
got it.
can
So
get
this was
into.
not even intended for this
Yeah,
special.
but no one had seen it before, so it worked out luckily. But yes,
Yeah,
he
it
was
kind of fit
doing
it.
his own
It was weird. You were like, why are they over there? But
thing.
I did not know that. So, and I never thought necessarily that. I thought it was more of just a like, man, we couldn't get them together on that day, so we filmed this other
He
thing.
didn't.
Like
He
that's what
didn't.
it felt like.
Tom Baker did not want to come back so soon after he'd left. You know, he'd only been gone for like a year and a half, and he was like, I don't know if I want to do that. So they came up with this solution because they wanted to get. There's also very funny. They couldn't because he wasn't participating when they did a big photo shoot where they had all the doctors together and then some of the companions and stuff. They couldn't get Tom Baker. So they borrowed his waxwork from Madame Tussauds and pictures of them all like hanging off of his.
Funny. Well, let's have a clip here from the
There was only
5
one clip I could choose.
doctors.
As you can see, Lord President, the casket bears the seal of Rassilon
Where was this found?
in the Castellan's room.
Black scrolls of Rassilon.
Interesting. I thought they were out of print.
Oh, don't touch, Doctor. This is forbidden knowledge from the Dark Tower. Are you taking no chances?
I am innocent. I have never seen that casket before.
Take him to security and discover the truth. You are authorized to use the mind probe.
What? No, not the mind probe.
Let me speak to him.
No, Doctor. The mind probe will give us all the answers we require.
I mean,
All right,
there's only
ladies
one
and
clip,
gentlemen.
and that's it.
That's a
Shout out
wrap,
to our
everybody. We did
podcast.
it.
Yep.
It really
And-
is an incredible line reading. It stresses so many wrong syllables. It's such a bizarre.
It's extraordinary. I think one of the DVDs has alternative takes of it, and he tried, but for some reason that was the one they ended up going with. But yes, no, not the mind probe.
No, not the mind. Like it's very, very fascinating. We should get the previous clip of him saying you're authorized to use the mind probe, and we should maybe I can loop that into our opening theme.
Ooh, yeah.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
I of course have never heard this, so this is all new to me.
Finally, now this 84 episodes later, this podcast makes sense.
Kind of makes sense. What will not make sense is my recap of this episode. So I'll go through it real briefly, mainly just listing off the people who are in it. But
it's a simple one.
so we have all the doctors are brought back together with, I believe it's called the Time Scoop.
Yep, the time scoop. Now let's see the BritBox version you watched.
Yeah.
I gotta orient here because you might have been. So they've updated the special effects on this a couple times. So the one you watched was the time scoop. Was it like sort of a gelatinous sort of clear thing that like sort of spun through, or was it actually just a digital like black triangle that
It was a triangle that would show the people inside, but not like a still
Just
picture.
a still photo? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Then I think you saw the unfiltered, the one we saw when it came out, which is the
Yeah.
right one. I think. I mean, you know, they've done some extended scenes and edits, but it's like no, it's a good one to have.
Yeah, that's the very beginning, right? When they're kind of
Yep.
being brought to. Yeah,
Yep.
so we see this triangle go toward, I guess, right away the
First Doctor. Yeah.
the first
his
doctor,
garden.
and this poor video effect of a triangle goes near them. They are clearly captured inside. The same thing for the second doctor.
After a wonderful reunion scene with the Brigadier, you must have been enjoying the second Doctor and the Brigadier together is fantastic. Through the whole thing is fantastic. But
Yeah, they're great. And so we get a bunch of people together. We also get Susan, a grown-up
back.
Susan.
Yeah.
Sarah Jane with K9, of course.
Mm-hmm.
We saw some Daleks, some Cybermen. I haven't actually seen the Yeti, but the Yeti was
the
here.
Web of Fear. We saw remember the Web of Fear, the Yetis in the underground. And
I'm thinking, no, okay, that's
first
right.
Brigadier
That's
one.
right. That's
Seen
right.
him.
Mm,
The
that's right. It was
Raston
like-
Warrior Robot was just a guy in a silver leotard.
Okay, so we got these guys together, and then we go back to Gallifrey too. The Master's here too.
Mhm.
And they're telling him that I like how they talk at each other. It's like it's a subtext as texting. They're like, "You must go help the doctor," and they're like, "But I, as his enemy, would be unlikely to help him." And then they just are saying it so plainly. But they said, you'll be given a new set of regenerations. Do they talk, by the way, in the Day of the Doctor and in this? Do they talk yet about like the number of regenerations?
So we find out it's a throwaway line from some earlier story about how he only can regenerate 12 times. So, and then that's it. Yeah, it's that was always sort of thrown away because there were earlier stories where the Doctor said he can live forever barring accidents, but then they tried to create a limit on it, probably presuming they're like, we'll never hit that. And then obviously as they get but yes, this suggestion that they could just offer you a new lifespan does sort of undercut the urgency of the thing. But as we're going to find out shortly,
Yeah.
it's very helpful for us. Yeah.
So yeah, there's, the Master's trying to work them. The Cybermen are there too.
A lot of
We're
Cybermen.
all a lot of Cybermen. Then Castellan, we have the Black Scrolls of Rassilon.
And we meet
And-
Rassilon for the first time. We've heard a lot about Rassilon. This is the first time we ever see him.
Finally get to see him.
Distinctly unimpressive, but there he is.
And what I like what they did throughout is it's all a mix match thing. So like the first Doctor is with Tegan.
Yeah.
And then like you just mentioned the second Doctor with Brigadier and stuff like that. So I mean, I know they were together briefly. And anyway, I like that they're pairing up everybody. Jamie and Zoe are there. Then Liz Shaw is there.
Yeah,
and
Liz
I
Shaw
was
might
happy
be.
about that because I liked her, but you had kind of said like they kind of swept her away.
Yeah, no. I mean,
But,
she's an
she
evil
was
hologram, but she's still there.
She's there.
Did you enjoy one of the confounding scenes that Who fans to this day are like? So is the first Doctor and Tegan at the checkerboard, and you cross it, and if you cross the wrong path, the lightning will come.
Right.
They fool the Cybermen into doing it, but then it's like, try it, Doctor. It's as easy as pie, and then he's like, pie? Oh, a pie, and then he's like, calculates or whatever. But it's a different path every time, and the board is not a circle, so that doesn't. And no one hits the squares very well. It's a hilarious scene, and it goes on for like 10 minutes. It's wonderful.
They're very impressed with their laser effect that they wanted to show there. We get to hear the third Doctor talk about reversing the polarity of the neutron flow.
Yeah, we got a little of that in there. Yeah.
And
Bruce is a traitor. That's obviously a big reveal because we'd met Bruce. Remember the Deadly Assassin way back, and then we saw him in the Invasion of Time as another person, and then he was actually I don't think we've seen the Arc of Infinity yet, but we'll get there. So yeah,
right. And then so what he's trying to. Well, then we get back into the limited regenerations, and what he's trying to set this all up as is so that he can regenerate forever, and we find that he does get his wish.
Yeah.
And he lives forever, but he's encased in the tomb as essentially one of the statues.
Yeah, but again, it's just like he can live forever, but they just offered the Master more regeneration, so it seems like why can't he just get that re-upped? I don't quite. maybe the time. I don't know. That was a little confusing.
There seem to be a lot of Time Lords who go mad with power, but
yeah, it's not. They're not a great tracker. The Time Lord mental health program really needs.
I know they
just
just
yeah. This is Terrence Dix, who was sort of the script editor from the Third Doctor. Wrote a lot of classic episodes. It was initially going to be Robert Holmes, who was also. We talked about him a few times. He's known for some of the great legendary Doctor Who episodes. And then Holmes tried to do it. He started it. He was going to write something called The Six Doctors. And I think this story was going to end with it was going to turn out that the first Doctor was actually a robot that was like an assassin or something like that, hence explaining why he looked different. And that was going to be the sixth Doctor. But eventually he just couldn't make it work. And it's really so Terrence Dix said he was trying to write this thing, and basically the whole time, because they're trying to get this giant cast together who all have various commitments and different things like that. And so he's apparently was just busily writing away, and then he'd get a phone call and be like, hey, Elizabeth Slade and Sarah Jane, she can now only do like 2 weeks and only on location.
Right.
And this guy can only do it. Oh, and we lose John Pertwee. And so like had to keep reshuffling the thing to make it work.
Like an Avengers movie.
Yeah,
situation.
it was chaos scheduling. They had to obviously the goal was to get 5 Doctors. We've seen 3 Doctors, so we've established the reuniting them all is a big deal. So the problems they faced. I mentioned obviously Tom Baker not willing to come back. So yes, this was the end of his I think second to last season. There was a huge 6-parter by Douglas Adams called Shadow that was halfway filmed, and then there was a strike. Shades of today. And the strike meant they couldn't finish it. So the footage was basically just, they just had it in archives. And so they're like, we'll use that. And so this is the sort of from the opening of that.
Now,
they have,
has it ever been fully released since?
Yes. Yes. They finally finished it. It's an interesting. Actually, I've included it in our run here at some point later. It's a very interesting combination of basically there's live action and then it transitions to animated, and so that they can finish. And they had the original cast voice the animation. It's pretty cool. But yeah, so we've got him and Shadow. So many companions and monsters. This was actually shown in the U.S. at a convention before the U.K. So the U.S. audiences, or some U.S. audience in Chicago, I believe it was, saw this. I remember seeing this on PBS maybe not long after it had come out. It was a big deal. It was on one of their pledge breaks. And yeah, it's hard to. So this was, I should say, also this is the first VHS I ever had. So I had this. This was the first Doctor Who tape on tape. It was VHS tape that I ever had. And to this day, I could pretty much do it from memory. Like I could pretty much perform this from beginning to end. If I'm ever bored or if I'm ever buried alive or something, I imagine this is how I'll try to keep my sanity is by doing this. But yeah, it's hard. This is the interesting thing about this would be, and contrast this to the 50th, is that for most people, these are all characters and people you would not have seen. Like, it's not like they didn't do as many repeats. There weren't videos and stuff yet. It was 1983. They hadn't started releasing them on tape. People didn't have many VCRs and could record stuff. So, like, all these people you hadn't seen in forever. Like, the Day of the Doctor, it's like, oh yeah, we can all watch David Tennant on, DVD and this. But like, this was like, oh my goodness, it's Sarah Jane, she's back, and it was very exciting to see all of these characters. There's a great. One of the DVDs for it, I think it's the 20th anniversary of this one, of the show. So the 40th anniversary of Doctor Who. There's a secret track on one of the DVDs that's David Tennant and I think one of the two of the other producers of his run of Doctor Who watching this and talking about it. And yes, the whole time they're just going, oh, and then she's back, and oh, you don't know how exciting it was when he came back and we saw him, and like that very fanboyish how exciting all of this was. So yes, special place in the heart of a Doctor Who fan. 5 Doctor.
Should all the doctors all be brought and all throughout of time? If all the doctors would be brought for days of theme and times.
Look, Daddy, every time a bell rings, a TARDIS gets its wings.
For all themes and times, my dear. For all themes and times. We'll all agree that K9 sucks for all themes and times. Reminiscing about doctors and
so many doctors.
Past. And when you think back on old good times where you blew up a whole civilization, and you just think back and think, well, I made some mistakes, but good friends and good times. We are adherents of the repeating themes here in No Not the Mind Probe. What we like to do is we like to consider ideas and moments that are threaded throughout Doctor Who and all of history, and then we like to just strip them down to their parts and see what they're really made of.
Just people are just like, yeah.
What did you want to talk about for these couple episodes?
I want to talk about fonts used in the credits.
Ooh,
I think this is an episode where really this is the time to dig in.
Yes.
Like, what font should they use? I mean, let's talk about longevity. I mean, we've talked about nostalgia in the past. We talked about sort of these anniversary episodes and stuff like that. But we are celebrating the 20th, the 50th, and as we're recording the 60th Doctor Who anniversary, and it's still going. It's still running. You can't stop it. It's a bullet. It's a freight train. And no matter who you throw in front of it.
Well, they did stop it for about 15 years there,
but it just kept, people are like, no, we want it back. So what is the secret? What's the secret? You've now are well steeped. You have watched over 160 episodes of Doctor Who.
Wow.
Yeah. What do you think? What's the secret to its long life and appeal? And it obviously just now appealed to multiple generations. It has, been across enormous amounts of history. It has been in black and white. It has been a multi-episode thing. It has had, we've had old doctors, young doctors. We've now had a lady doctor.
Well,
I think, what is the secret?
I think that's part of it. So part of it, I think, is it's a mix of a bunch of things. I think it's the variety. It isn't just one thing over and over again. And it's not just recasting, right? It's a different doctor each time. They're different companions. It's not just someone else is playing Batman. Because I'm comparing it to Batman, that thing which has not stuck around. Oh wait, actually that has been around for 80 years too,
Mm,
100
mhm, mhm.
almost. But no, I think the variety is a big part of it. And then, like you said, it does span generations. So there are kids who grew up watching David Tennant, and then like that's their doctor, that's their favorite doctor. So I, plus mixed with, there's a momentum to the whole thing, which I think helps. Sometimes things are helped by scarcity, right? Like when maybe, I'm not sure about Star Wars, but maybe I think Star Wars was helped by the movies came out so infrequently. I know they started to put out books and stuff. The movies came out so infrequently, so people would just obsess about these 3 movies, and that was certainly part of the case when you were growing up. You couldn't get your hands on all the stuff, but even when you started to get into Doctor Who, if you did start to tap into it, there was so much already to get into. Now there's been even that much more. You
Yeah.
talked about, we watched 160 episodes. We're just over halfway through the whole thing. Like there's just so much that it lends itself towards fandom. It
Yeah.
lends itself towards being obsessed because there's so many details to it. But so I think it's like the variety, the bulk of itself. And then we talked about this, but I think it helps because I think it would be impossible to maintain it for this long without the general lightness of it. I know not all the episodes are like that. There are moments where there's heaviness to it, but like it's generally good natured and light. And I don't think a really, really heavy, dark, grim thing
Yeah.
would have lasted that long. It always surprised me that, for example, The Walking Dead lasted as long as it did. And that's not even the grimmest show ever, but it is pretty grim.
Mhm.
And I was just like, how could, like, I watched it at the beginning. I was fascinated by that show. I really enjoyed it. Then after about 3 or 4 seasons, I'm like, God, this is just like, I mean, I
Like I
can't,
got eaten. Oh.
yeah, I can't stick with this. Whereas this, it's like it always ends like eventually you get to a lighter note. Eventually, the doctor's always trying to find the good in. He loves humans, right? I mean, he's
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
seeing the good in humanity, and I think that's important. So the tone is really important too. Interestingly, I completely accidentally, they invented a perfect formula, which is all you have to do is make your initial show very attractive to people, to very creative people, because then you will breed new writers of the show, but
Oh.
good ones. Like
Yeah.
they managed to make a show that some of the most creative people in the UK really liked. So
Yeah.
then, when it did reboot, they had this huge bench of people who are like, you've talked about it several times, all these people who are like, oh, I'd love to write a Doctor Who, all these like very, very impressive writers.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And then obviously, yeah, you got these very smart creatives doing it, and then also, yeah, at some point, and I mean, it'd be interesting to figure out when that shift happened. Like at some point, it became a thing for actors too, of just kind of like, when are you going to do your Doctor Who? Like, I mean, like, it's like it's just. I saw
And you're talking about during the classic series too. That just became
Yeah.
a thing too.
Even
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
yeah, people were kind of, and now it's crazy, but like everybody's been in it and done one little, and it's sort of like, and, that you're right. I think too, part of the reason that, you're going to get like Judi Dench would play a Dalek. I mean, she hasn't yet, but she, it's just like, because it's light and funny, it's kind of like, it doesn't have to be, people aren't going to be like, oh, I'm going to be so embarrassed doing it or something like that. It's like, oh yeah, it's my go at Doctor Who and I want to do it. And,
The only thing that's even comparable to me in the US, and it's a completely different thing, but we actually referenced him at the beginning of the show, is Sesame Street is like that in the
yeah,
US. It has been around forever. You grow up with it, and if you're not from here, it's a children's program originally made by Jim Henson, but it's been run by a separate thing than the Muppets for a long time.
yeah.
And stars love, like it's sort of a rite of passage if you get famous enough to be a guest star on Sesame Street. It's a big deal. Everyone loves to do it. Like it's a dream almost.
Yeah.
And that's pretty straightforwardly a kid show.
Yeah.
but there's
Well,
something
there's
about
sort
that.
of, yeah, these characters become iconic, right? Cookie Monster, or Kermit, or something like that, and yeah, same kind of thing with the Doctor. And I think it's also an interesting thing of, and these episodes prove it, is that because of the time travel nature of the show, because of the devotion of fans and going back and looking at all the past stuff and things like that, it's like you're never not a part of the show. Like these actors and stuff, like you're always the Doctor. Like, and like, they now give interviews with like when the new guy Judy Gatwa got cast and others, like old doctors reach out to them and are just like, hey, you're part of a thing now. Like you are forever going to be the Doctor no matter what happens. And like there's a, and like, it's great. the new Blu-rays that have been coming out, one of the new features they've been adding is they do a called Behind the Sofa, where it's basically they get some of the various cast members to watch the episodes that are coming out and they talk about it. It's like, I think Gogglebox is the version of it. It's basically reaction videos, but but what's great is it's a mix and match. So like, the one I've been watching recently has like Ace, Sophie Aldred, and maybe I think like Zoe or something from Second Doctor era, like or they have Tegan, Nyssa, and the Fifth Doctor together, and but like it's sort of a random mix and match. But what's great is that they all know each other because they've all met each other so many times, even though they never on the show together. They all know each other and have met each other over the years and stuff like that. And then they call it the Doctor Who family, and it becomes this thing. And so maybe that connection too, like the old stuff retains relevance, even while it's forging new paths too, and maybe that appeals. Like contrast that to a soap opera where it doesn't. I mean, your character may come back or something like that occasionally, but it's not like people are like clamoring for like the old soap opera character. Once they're gone, they're gone. The story keeps moving on.
Now, part of that is, and this might be a discussion for another episode, but part of that is because it clearly, in addition to engendering a fan base of future creatives who are, brilliant people, it also certainly engendered a fan base of like obsessives who want to document little things about the show and would, and clearly science fiction seems to attract that. Why is that? Why aren't there people who are I'm sure there are people who, for example, are obsessed with Gunsmoke and every detail in, that ran for like 30 years or something, right?
Yeah, one of the longer
and I'm sure that there are obsessive fans of Gunsmoke. That said, sci-fi shows seem to attract like lots of obsessive fans who really get into the detail and, documenting which alien showed up when, and basically sort of holding the creators' feet to the fire about like, you better kind of try to keep some continuity here because we're going to send letters.
Yeah.
What is it about science fiction that does it? Because I think that's kind of part of what keeps the show, gives it its longevity too, is that you inspire this fan base who starts to get into this, documents it. Of course, in the age of the internet, then that becomes its own sort of.
Well, I guess it's. I'm still trying to think about like, all right, what other shows am I fanish about? And there's nothing. I think it's because maybe science fiction offers so many different avenues that you can go down. Right? There's. It's very difficult to be too formulaic. At least about really good sci-fi, like even Star Trek, which they're still traveling around, and it's got a rough formula, but it's a very like Doctor Who, it's a very vague formula. They travel around, they explore, they find aliens, something happens, and all sorts of crazy stuff can kind of occur around this. So you've got just a much like CSI or Criminal Minds. They're entertaining. I like to watch them or whatever, but it's like this. There's only so much they can do. Like they can't. It's gonna be a lot harder to have like a musical episode or where they they go like something just totally. It's like there's gonna be a crime. There's gonna be a thing like so the formula restricts it. And so there's just not as much universe to play in, I think. Whereas, sci-fi, you can go in so many different directions and the rules are so loose that you can do, and maybe that's what draws people in.
Well, anyway, I think that helps aid the longevity of it. And then also the scarves. I mean, no other show features scarves.
A lot of scarves. That's what people, and that's what people like. That's what people tune in for.
That's a big part of it. All right, we are going to rank anniversary specials. I'm only going to rank anniversary specials this episode. That's my rule. So I'm not going to rank Night of the Doctor. It wasn't an anniversary special.
Now,
so.
I hope you use these ideas for when you have an actual anniversry with Mrs. Probe, and you're like, we're having our anniversary special, and then like David Tennant shows up, and you're like, it's two of us.
And I bring back our old boyfriends and girlfriends. Like, it's really fun. All right, we have ranked 100. Let me get this number right. There are 300 official Doctor Who television stories. We've ranked 168 of them. We are hurtling in about 2.5 years toward the end of this podcast, but not really, because they're always going to keep making more Doctor Who. So we're going to rank two more. I'm going to go first. I'm going to rank the 5 Doctors first. I liked it. It was not my favorite. As my kids say about food, I have been taught to say about food that they don't like. They go, "It's not my favorite." It's not my favorite. I don't have it like real low or anything, but like, I don't know. There were fun moments. I really like particularly Patrick Troughton. He was great to see in this environment. And to your point, hanging out with
The whole exchange in the when he's meeting Colonel Crichton at the beginning and
Yeah.
stuff like that, and he's like, "Oh, that line, it's oh, you've redecorated. I don't like it."
Yeah, he's great. So there were really fun moments, and that's why I had it higher, but it just didn't hang together well, and the plot was sort of bizarre to me. It did have, of course, our namesake
Mhm.
for the podcast.
Crossover. That was a crossover appeal to our podcasting
Yeah,
audience.
it just yeah, exactly. Just sort of a blatant
Yeah.
play to get our
It's
podcast
like when they're like,
listeners.
"Hey, everybody, get into our Ford Focus with its four-wheel drive, and go solve the crime." Yeah, I mean, just like, yeah.
So I ended up putting it at number 66, I believe.
Okay, not bad.
So it was
Not bad.
pretty high up,
Yeah.
but not like, yeah, I don't know. The funny thing about it to me is that like I can't put myself back in the head of when it happened because
Right.
well, I guess neither could you, but like it wasn't as like when it came out I thought, "Oh wow, they're together for the first time." I was like, "Yeah, I've already seen them be like that." And for me, these guys do exist basically on the same time. I'm watching this all
Yep.
together, so it's not as interesting or surprising to me. Though I get it's fun. I put it right below Angels Take Manhattan, Partners in Crime, Waters of Mars. I put it just above Bells of St. John, Power of Three, 42. So kind of in like the top half, but not like way up there.
All right.
Day of the Doctor,
Mm.
I'm gonna put
Mm.
as number 1 on my list.
Ooh.
I thought about it, where I might come in,
Mhm.
and I think it's just such a good mix of my current number 1 had been the 11th Hour, which is amazing, and right below that I had Robot, which is Tom Baker's last one. But what I loved about Robot is it had all the elements of what I enjoy about Doctor Who, and I thought this did too. In a weird way, it reminded me of Robot, though it's not at all campy like that. But it had like fun elements. It did bring back some stuff that I liked. It was a very well scripted episode. There was also serious parts. So it just had like so much going on in it.
Mhm.
Plus, you get both of these really great doctors. Plus, John Hurt. Like it just had so much in it. So yeah, I'm moving that up to the top of the list, and I feel good about it.
All right. Well, we're pretty close here on at least that one. Yeah. Day of the Doctor. I've got at number 3 on my list. So right, City of Death, Genesis Alex, Day of the Doctor, but all very tight race up there. Yeah, I mean, obviously the experience of seeing it and how amazing it was to be there, and I mean, yeah, but sort of stripping that away, even it's like Stephen Moffat just knocks it out of the park. You got to hand it to him for some incredible writing, and yeah, it celebrates Doctor Who in a way that, I mean, the other thing he had to do was he was like, oh yeah, a lot of the people watching this are not gonna have watched Doctor Who for a while. Like people are going to be just tuning in to be like, oh, 50th anniversary. I used to watch that, back in the 70s and stuff. So to be, I think, still accessible for that, and bringing all these past elements, and you've got great. Yeah, it's a really good episode. I think it will long be close to the top, if not the top, for most Doctor Who fans. Until who knows what happens in the 60th anniversary stories? Who knows?
Who knows?
Five Doctors is also for me up there. It's number 12, and that one is again, I think a nostalgia thing for me. I think I mean, given again the many limitations of the elements, I think Terrence Dicks actually gets more companions and doctors into it.
Yeah,
which is great. And
in terms of companions per minute, he's winning.
And they're all doing their little bit, which is fun to watch. And I mean, this was just one I've watched it so many times, and it was so exciting. And so probably still also cruising a little bit on the experience of seeing it for the first time, because it is pretty exciting. Let's just check in with and we're not far off, by the way, on our so this is the Doctor Who magazine poll that we've been covering. We've been covering as breaking news at the podcast really coming out. We're not far off here. So for Matt Smith, the Day of the Doctor is number 1 on the list. And in the past, even the sort of mega rankings of all the stories together, Day of the Doctor has come up in the top at least once or twice, much to Stephen Moffat's relief. I think he was terrified of like the reaction. He was like, what if people hate it? As you say, like, think about it, like, you're all coming to it like, all right, here we go. It's the biggest story ever, and everybody's going to see it. Five Doctors is number 3 for Peter Davison. So just behind Caves of Androzani and Earthshock. And then we've got the Five Doctors. So also a popular one. with the fans. I was just to say a good one too, in that I think one of the things they talked about when they're writing is they said, okay, we gotta, yes, it's a multi-doctor story or whatever, but Peter Davison is the Doctor, so we gotta highlight Peter Davison, and so it was great. He gets the most important, aspects of it and gets the most to do, so that's good. And I have to say I give credit for the. I love the ending where it's a little tortured to get there, but they had to get to somehow like, you mean you're going to deliberately go on the run from your own people in a rackety old TARDIS that doesn't work? And he gets to say, of course, after all, that's how it all started. And this is a wonderful completion there. And then you get, Matt Smith's sort of monologue at the end. Like, I've got to go find Gallifrey, which is, I think some of the interviews afterwards set up as like, this is going to be sort of the future of Doctor Who. Like, this is the new thing now. He's looking for Gallifrey. He's looking to go home. But they almost abandoned this immediately.
By the way, I wanted to say Peter Davison is probably the Doctor who has, my opinion has improved on the most since I didn't dislike him that much since the first. I think the first one we watched was the Merca. I mean,
Warriors of Deep was an early one.
That was a pretty rough one, but I really like him more and more as I've seen his. Well, let me look into the supercomputer because now, we have a new official Mind Probe #1.
Yeah, I mean, I figured.
The Day of the Doctor. So our current top 10, well, it's actually top 11 because we have some ties. So we have Day of the Doctor #1, 11th Hour #2. So Stephen Moffat, Matt Smith really doing good work here. Then we have Inferno, City of Death, Silence in the Library, Forest of the Dead, the aforementioned Robot, Blink, Tooth and Claw, The Aztecs, Genesis of the Daleks, and Runaway Bride. Genesis of the Daleks and Runaway Bride tied for 10th.
So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new series, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean,
it's actually 6 new and 5 classic because it's 11. But a pretty good mix there. Now, right below there, we have about 10 new. There's some of the classics make it up to the top, but in general we are pretty heavy on the new, and that is probably largely because of my rankings, and also probably largely because some of the classic episodes are indeed kind of terrible. It just the bar for quality is pretty high on the new episodes.
It's fair.
So listen, you can go see this ranking. We're having a 50th anniversary special for our website, mindprobe.show. It's been around for 50 years.
The website.
We just took it over a few years ago, but you can check out our rankings. You can check out.
It was the original DARPA net. It was for the Mind Probe program at DARPA.
That's right.
They had the website, and then we were just like, "Can we have it? Are you still doing Mind Probe stuff?" And they're like, "No."
It was actually at that time called the Mind Probe Texaco Hour, and they would have some old timer.
Porter used to open every episode with a monologue about how much he enjoyed the cigarettes he was smoking. Menthol, they have extra tar.
But you can go on the website. You can check out our old episodes. You can check out. There was a point where John used to write episode descriptions, and they're very good and have lots of links. But you can check those out. You can also look at our watch order if you want to watch ahead. For example, John just mentioned Shada. Shada is scheduled for our final episode, which may or may not actually. It won't be our final.
I'm behind because that I think that got us through to before the Flux season. So we've got. I'm already behind, but
that's coming up. Shada's coming in episode 140, so you want to stick around for that.
60 more.
60 more. So
just give it, folks. If you're teetering on the edge, just give it another 60 episodes. I think it's going to turn around for you.
It's not even that much. It's not even 60. It's 54. It's like you could just knock out 54 episodes. You go on a long run,
right?
And then
put them on at double speed. It's okay. We're fast. Yeah,
exactly. So go to mindprobe.show. You can reach out to us, Porter at mindprobe.show or John at mindprobe.show if you want to tell us anything.
What you think? I heard from Paul recently. Paul feels that we were getting a little down on Who. Maybe he felt there was a lull a little bit earlier, but he feels that we are back up. We're back on top, and he's very happy.
Well, I think what Paul recognizes, and we're excited about this. So next episode, and John, you'll tell us what the episodes are, but this will be the changing of the Doctors. So we're going to move on to a new Doctor. I think we've all been ready for that. We were ready for Amy and Rory to move on. We're happy for the 11th Doctor to move on. So I think that's what it is, Paul. We're just. Yeah, we're ready for new blood.
Freshness. We need a little freshness. Shake out those sheets. With
please
Rose in them.
Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. Give us a rating on Apple Podcasts. That'd be great. And
go
also,
to YouTube.
subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com at mindprobe.show. Subscribe to us. You can like our videos. We'd love it and appreciate that, and share around with friends.
Threaten your friends.
Please keep circulating the tapes. John, what do we have in store for next episode?
Well, let's say goodbye to Matt Smith. It's been a good run. The fellow, he's the young fellow in the fez. We're going to, the final Matt Smith, it's a Christmas special, would have come about a month after the Day of the Doctor. And we got Matt Smith and Clara, and we wrapped together all the threads, a lot of threads coming together in the time of the Doctor. And I've paired that. So the time of the Doctor is a real continuity fest. Brings, multiple seasons of references to past Who's and things like that. So I've paired that with a similar, though moderately less successful attempt at this. The Six Doctors season opener, his first full season, the opening story, the real continuity fest, a lot of references to things no one knows about. Attack of the Cybermen.
Well, that'll be exciting, John. We're all looking forward to that.
I know you love some Six Doctor and Perry. That's your jam.
Boy. I feel bad. Maybe they'll start to grow me the Sixth and the Seventh Doctors.
Maybe if we do some Big Finish. Yeah.
Hey, Paul McGann's grown on me. Now I like Paul McGann. So.
Well, now you've seen him twice. You've now seen double the Paul McGann. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Double shot of Paul McGann.
He still could pull it off. He's just appeared recently. He could pull it off. He's still looking young.
I think you're Paul McGann's agent. Mindprobe.show.